My camera went out 8 times.
Wow, but then it stabilized finally, like, thank goodness.
I know it was your energy because that has never happened in 53 interviews, and I know how powerful you are.
Yeah. No, it's true. I've had similar situations.
My guest today is Cynthia Sue Larson, who came into this earthly incarnation awake. She remembers the time before she planned to come here. She also has a degree in physics from UC Berkeley and an MBA, and her specialty is quantum physics. She has written 3 books, one called High Energy Money, and she marries all of this with deep spirituality. So buckle up because we are going deep. Cynthia, welcome. I am so glad you're here today.
Thank you so much, Lori. I love talking with you. You've got such a bright, dazzling energy.
Well, thank you so much for that lovely compliment. I so appreciate it. But you have just such a beautiful energy. And I love the fact that you marry all of this deep spirituality with science. So, why don't we start with, will you explain to people your scientific background? Let's start there first. And then I'm going to come back to what I said in the intro about you coming in awake.
Right. Well, I did study physics at UC Berkeley. That's true. And then from there, I helped organize conferences, Foundations of Mind conferences, which brought together physicists talking about, like these were the hippies who saved physics, for example, those kind of people like Fred Allen Wolf, who's, you know, Quantum or Dr. Quantum from What the Bleep Do We Know? You might know that movie.
Sure,
Yeah.
yes, of course.
Yeah. And so um, I've been doing that kind of work with conferences, and I'm continuing that with International Mandela Effect Conference because we're also doing our best to bring in scientists like Tom Campbell and Dr. Hoffman talking about their view on how all of reality can incorporate some rather strange phenomenon that you and I might call Mandela effect or reality shifts, quantum jumping, but basically uh, mind matter interaction of a variety of different types. So that's my fascination because it seems like that is the way forward for human evolution and for also addressing answers to what seem like insolvable problems of our times.
All right. So, when you say that this is the solution, what do you mean by that?
I mean that you can look at the way all of reality sometimes appears to change with the Mandela effect. That's the commonly known term. It's also the same thing in my mind as reality shifts. And reality shifts seems like it's more of a general term for things that appear, disappear, transform, transport, or changes in the experience of time. The official definition for the Mandela effect from skeptical folks who I don't think really believe in it, they say that it's groups of people misremembering various events and things.
I
Yeah,
don't know how many that groups that big could it misremember so many different items.
right. And to me, it makes much more sense if we look at the kind of quantum consciousness that's showing up all over the place, that we would expect to see some kinds of maybe abrupt changes in the way that what we remember is now different from what's supposedly always been true.
So let's talk a little bit about, I'll come back to the Mandela effect. Don't worry, everybody, because it's a very fascinating topic and we could probably spend the
Mhm.
whole time talking about that. But I want you to tell us about your memory of before you came into this earthly incarnation.
Well, that was just all good. It was felt like blissed out and hanging out with angels and God or the absolute, just pure love, basically. And I felt like I needed that. It felt like the best spa day ever, but it just kind of continues. And if you want to see someone or think of them, there they are. It was just wonderful. And so that's what it felt like for me between lives. And then I definitely was not at one with all that is. I was hanging out with it, but I still had a sense of identity. And then coming into this life, I felt definitely like I wasn't quite ready, and also like this might not necessarily be the right place. There's a book called Born Aware by Diane Brandon, and my chapter in the book is called Whoops, Wrong Planet, because that's exactly how I felt. It was like, this is some kind of weird situation. It's because people, they were definitely thinking one thing, feeling something else, and doing yet a third thing. So there was and that seemed like the norm for people to be all fractured, like they're not all together. So no wonder it's confusing for them to come from a place of love rather than get sidetracked with the drama of all sorts of things. Interpersonal dramas, family dramas, wars between countries, all these disagreements that seem unnecessary. So I felt like there's so much more possible here. I love to ask how good can it get, because I like people to start thinking and feeling that direction. I know it's possible for all of us to go in that direction. I know that it's possible to experience right here on earth what we feel, some of us, when we're between lives, and it's amazing. We have the ability to do that. So I'd love to see it in this world.
I agree completely. All right, so you have this unusual childhood where I guess, who you are on a soul level. You know that you're not necessarily this incarnation, but yet you get interested in this deep science. So, how did you wind up marrying the science and reconciling it with what a lot of people would refer to as woo with the spirituality?
Yeah, well, science to me, okay, that's interesting. I think I'll describe a little bit about my family. My dad he loved math, he loved science, and he felt like math is the prince of the sciences. And he was gung-ho that my sister and I would hopefully pursue some kind of scientific education. I think he really wanted to do that anyway. But it is interesting because I was basically a mystic, if you want to call it that, seeing energy, seeing things, feeling things that I realized quickly early on I couldn't necessarily talk to people about because they weren't necessarily seeing a little dark energy thing scuttling across the floor or angels or whatever. So it made it challenging for me to fit in. And so during the time of my life that I wanted to pursue some scientific education. It seemed like that's fun. I was really good at math, and I thought, oh, I'd be happy to explore that. I think what happened exactly was after I'd gotten into the mathematics of it, the science of it, studying, getting a physics degree, and then deciding that what I really wanted to do is pursue management and help scientists work together better, and sort of getting back into the human side of things. Then shortly after all that, I had a Kundalini awakening, and that was really extraordinary. That was happened in 1994, and it took me like 5 years to process the experience, but I just felt like energy was rushing through me, and that was just a big callback to return to my original mission instead of getting sidetracked into just, left brain pursuits of studying physics and getting excited about papers and publishing and all that stuff. So it moved me much more into the spiritual side of things again. The truth that everything comes first from consciousness, which is actually what Max Planck said. He's the father of quantum physics, that consciousness, you can't get behind it. Everything is fundamentally consciousness. So that's, in a nutshell, that's how it comes together for me. Experiences brought me back into it, realizing through the Kundalini awakening. I'm really glossing over it, but it was heavy hitting. It was powerful just to spontaneously be remote viewing, spontaneously seeing 360 degrees around me, knowing things that were happening miles away that I had no way of knowing, but it's like I was right there, experiencing just all kinds of bizarre phenomenon, which has actually continued somewhat, but it calmed down significantly. When I was denying the Kundalini and trying to say, no, I want to be normal, that seemed to bring it on most of all. I mean, that was the most spectacular, undeniable, unmistakable phenomena that I've ever seen. So I don't
Well,
deny it.
well, what's normal anyway? So, will you share with us maybe I'm laughing about this. I'm keeping a chat tally. My video has gone out 6 times because Cynthia is probably one of the most powerful people that I have ever interviewed. But seriously, so will you share with us maybe one of the most extraordinary things that happened that you saw, that you experienced after your Kundalini awakening?
Oh gosh, so many. Some things happened during that Kundalini, such as on a calm day when there's no wind, sticks and stones hitting the windows. I've had doors slam in the house when I was the only one here, and the door didn't actually slam, but I could hear it slam. Just really strange phenomenon. I don't know. It's hard to even know where to start. It sounds spooky, but it didn't seem spooky to me. When these things are happening, they usually go with an understanding of what's underneath the event. So when the sticks and stones were hitting the windows, I was feeling very energized, but not grounded. And I was about to give a talk in front of hundreds of people at a time in my Kundalini awakening experience where my spirit didn't feel like it was even in my body at all. I felt like a weird monkey thing, like I was sort of operating a puppet or something. It was strange. And so I thought, I can't give a talk in front of hundreds of people. So I was a little bit stressed about that. And so I was aware of my consciousness actually being physically located in like 3 9-dimensional dragons simultaneously. I know this sounds very strange. It sounds more like science fiction, but that's the sort of thing. So I would know that's what's going on. And I'd actually be able to be calm about it because then I'd realize, okay, I need to calm down because I'm stressing out. And that's why the sticks and stones are hitting the windows. And my daughter had something rippling around under her skin on her face. And she said, Mom, my face feels weird. And it looked weird. But I realized it's all this. I knew what it was. It sounds crazy. It sounds like a horror movie, but it wasn't a horror movie. It was just, okay, let's just calm down. And then the sticks and stones stop hitting the windows. And my daughter's fine, and I can give a talk even though I don't feel like my spirit's in my body. And the talk went very well, actually, but I didn't feel normal throughout the talk. But the point is, I think that the Kundalini was showing me that we're so much more than we think we are. And we're not even anything like what we think we are. We make so many assumptions that we're just the physical being and that's who I am. But Kundalini awakening reminded me that's not at all true. This is much more like a game character or an avatar. And the truth of who we are is so much more, so much bigger, so much more love, so much more dimensionality, so much more than what fits even in space and time. So it's very interesting.
Well, I love so much that you're sharing these types of stories because I really feel like we're going through the Great Awakening. People are starting to understand they're more than this human incarnation. They're
Yes.
having these experiences. They don't know where to turn. They can't talk to most people about it. So, this is a really wonderful place for them to come to talk to other people who've had experiences like this so that they can understand that they're not alone. And when they hear you, starting to talk about things like physical things happening, doors slamming, sticks and stones hitting the windows, me talking about signs and synchronicities that I get. It starts to open people up to understand the possibility. And you mentioned kind of this matrix that we're in, this avatar that we are. And I feel like, again, it refers back to the movie The Matrix. And I felt like when I wasn't super spiritual when that movie came out, wasn't where I am any close to where I am now. But when that movie came out, it resonated somehow deeply. And you could see Neo, dodging the bullets and realizing that he wasn't this physical and he could overcome this, which reminds me of ascended masters who are able to perform all kinds of things that you would think are possible. And when those things begin to happen and people hear about it, they hear about, oh, I've been able to heal this ailment that I have, or fix something in my body, or change something in my life. It's kind of like the 4 minute mile. We didn't think that was possible, but now we start to hear and see all these examples. So I'm grateful that you even want to share these because you've mentioned, oh, it sounds crazy. It sounds unrealistic. It sounds like science fiction.
Mhm.
But it's not because it's quantum. So let's talk a little bit more about quantum because one of the things I've really been fascinated about quantum physics is that It has to have an observer for something to change, whether it's a wave or a particle. And since everything in the body is cellular based and at a quantum level, we're nothing but
Mm.
energy, this to me is why we're able to start to understand how we can control all of these phenomena you're talking about. So, will you explain in a little bit more detail about how that works?
Yeah, it gets back to this idea of who am I again. Like you said, it's all about the observer with quantum physics. No longer can we assume that we're some sort of a detached, perfectly impartial observer. That's there's no such thing as that level of objectivity that's been the cornerstone of the science that we thought we knew. So quantum physics is just like pulling at the foundation, and it's crumbling when the objectivity assumption goes, which it is. I wrote a paper about that. I co-authored one with George Weissman. He is like one of those hippies who saved physics, and we wrote about the subjectivity that's intrinsic, that this objectivity assumption is uh, totally flawed. But people, I don't think we've really caught up to that. We tend to assume, just like that definition of the Mandela effect, saying people are collectively misremembering. Well, that would be assuming that there's this objective singular truth. If we know that's not the case, then suddenly it's no longer necessarily misremembering, and we can start recognizing you can value and treasure those memories that you have. And probably what's really happening is you're traveling through possible realities. You're recognizing that there are adjacent possible realities right alongside of this one that we're in. And through this ability that we each and every one of us has to be that observer, to observe a situation, and in the observation, make that jump. This is exactly what I'm saying is happening. It's there's a lot to this, so I'm just point putting a spotlight on the idea of the subjectivity because that's super important. And then that level of who we are, who's doing the observing, makes a difference too. So if we're in one state of mind, we're more likely to experience certain things. For example, on my website, Reality Shifters, over the years, people have quite often written to me about having been teleported to safety when they were about to be struck by a fast moving vehicle, either because they're in a fast moving vehicle, it's about to be a head on, or they're standing alongside a street and there's a car just jumps the curb and it's coming right at them. In any of these cases, they'll often write to me and say, I'm fine. I don't know exactly what happened. One minute I was facing certain death. The next minute, like in the case of the two vehicles, usually what happens is they pass each other on like a one lane road. I'm laughing because they don't know how that happened. It's just like they don't know how to explain it. Or if they were walking or just about to be struck, they're suddenly 50 feet away. It's as if something picked them up and instantly teleported them. This is an extremely common experience. I think it's common because I've seen lots of these experiences and I've heard about it when I've given talks. In the audience, people will come up and whisper to me, I've never told anyone about this, but that exact thing happened to me. And so I know it's common. And so the fact that it's that common indicates that in that moment of great need, remember when I said, whoops, wrong planet, it was a misalignment, head, heart, and gut. So if you need something, suddenly your gut's online. Suddenly your heart's right there. Like, oh, I need to survive this. And your head can visualize it. If only I was like 50 feet away. Boom, you're 50 feet away. And that is quantum teleportation of an entire person and not just a tiny quantum particle that we know those teleport. But it's absolutely possible for anything at any scale to do the same thing that we witness on the quantum scale, where we see spooky action at a distance and teleportation, all that kind of good stuff.
Well, you mentioned state of mind. So let's talk about that a little bit because I really feel like when The Secret came out, I remember memorizing the phrase, what you think about, you bring about. And I remember going on walks and trying to draw these things to me. But I think what we missed is two parts. Number one, The Secret was based more on people trying to attract material things to themselves, which I don't think is the point anymore. But more than that, I feel like the big missing piece in The Secret was that it missed talking about the state of mind. And so to me, when you say state of mind, I'm thinking about vibrational state of mind and bringing in high level vibrational emotions like joy, happiness, gratitude, peace, versus the lower level emotions like fear, anger, hatred, um, disdain. So, can you speak to that? Because since, I'm always listening for the little phrases that people say, because when the people that are watching this, they feel like, I don't know if I'm going to have a Kundalini awakening. So they don't know where to start. They don't know how to work. But it's these little teeny tiny energy shifts that when you can share these little nuggets, help people in a huge way.
Yes. Thank you for pointing that out. Yeah, people can experience and enjoy the benefits wherever they are. And it starts by just listening to oneself, getting quiet and still. And you can call it meditating, but really it's just listening to yourself, noticing if you're thinking about something, you can respond to that. And if you're having a weird reaction when you think of a person or a thing, you can a lot of people just stifle those feelings. They stuff it down or they change their thoughts, and that's okay. It's good to notice what you're doing. But with regard to my favorite question again, how good can it get? We are living in a participatory cosmos. What that means is this is the work of John Archibald Wheeler. He's a physicist. He's the one that had ideas like black holes, white holes, it from bit, and also this idea here. It's a participatory universe, is what he called it. And so recognizing that anything you think and anything you feel, you're having a running dialogue and conversation with the universe. Now, obviously, if you're running Kundalini energy, then your field effect is bigger. So you might notice things more noticeably, but you'll have an effect at every level. And to the degree that your head, your heart, and your gut are aligned, in other words, don't be wishing for something you don't really care about. It sounds obvious and I'm laughing, but so many people, they just want to do what's in the book. And it's more important to do what matters to you, to know what's in your own heart. What do you genuinely love? What are you living for? And these are things any one of us can recognize and start to be our own best friend and realize at least this is the foundation of being, to know who you really are, what you really love, and then what you really need. That need, I know with people that are doing law of attraction, you shouldn't say need or want, but what I'm getting at is this forza. It's a feeling of passion and purpose, fire. And maybe we don't really talk about that much in our Western cultures, but it's important because that's our gut feelings and that's where the subconscious energy comes from. And it matters tremendously to be in alignment with that instead of trying to suppress it or do something that you think is appropriate, but maybe it's not you. And so lining these up is the key. It's something simple that we can all do. And it's something that we can start to just be yourself. People will say that, but this is what it really means. So that what you're visualizing is what you love and it's what you care passionately about and fundamentally have this passionate need. And I'm using the word need, but I'm using it in the sense of fire, like creative force, spark, passion, zest, because that's what it really is. It's whatever words you want to use, but it's that feeling of involvement. If you don't have it, then whatever you're thinking that you're going to manifest, that's probably not going anywhere.
All right, I'm going to bring up your book that I talked about in the introduction at this point. You wrote a book called High Energy Money. And the reason I'm going to bring it up is because we talked about maybe materialism not being the point of all of this, but to me, money equals freedom. So for a lot of people, it's the freedom to be able to do these things that have nothing to do with materialism, and it buys you the freedom to be able to do those things, engage in those things that you would maybe have to spend time in a different type of job. So what is high energy money? Why did you write it? And what's it really about?
Well, I was at the time I wrote it, I'd been giving a lot of talks and people kept asking. That's what they wanted to manifest. They wanted to bring money into their lives. And I was noticing a misalignment of the sort that I've just been talking about. And I recognized that there were a lot of beliefs that people had in their running through their mind. It's not even necessarily their thoughts, but commonly heard beliefs like money is the root of all evil, that kind of thing. And if you've got something like that running around, wrecking havoc in your mind, then of course it's going to be a little bit more challenging to be manifesting abundance of, material money in your life, in your bank account, finding it, so forth. And I recognize that's the basis of the book, really. It's just recognizing money is sort of like an energy that you can have a relationship with. A lot of people started life maybe with not the best relationship with money, because they saw that they didn't have enough in their family when they were growing up, or one thing or another. But there were some emotional attachments there. And so, one thing that's very helpful to do is to start noticing what kind of self talk is happening. And then I give examples in that it's not that big a book, but in the book, I give examples of a variety of different beliefs that could be happening at different levels, like different chakra levels in the body, in oneself, and then how you can flip them to become affirmations. Once you notice that a particular belief, like money is the root of all evil, you think like, well, why am I even entertaining this idea? I don't want to believe that. This is kind of random. Exactly. It is random. So therefore, it's perfect fair game to flip that to money is the root of all miracles. It could be. And that's equally possibly true. It doesn't necessarily need to be at the root of all evil. How about make it the root of all miracles? So you can do that kind of thing and create your own personalized, customized affirmations to start improving the relationship that each of us has with money. And then in the book also I talk about 3 different ways that people tend to feel like money, that's the way they like money to show up. Either they earn it, they work for it, or they invest and they expect it should show up in their investments. The investments should have good returns. Or they're mystics like me, and it's fine if it just drops in literally from nowhere. So
Can you give us an example of how money has dropped in from nowhere for you?
lots of times, yeah. One that I think I mentioned it in the book, was where I was hoping to go for a vacation, but I realized it would take $1,000 more than what I had, and I felt like I can't spend what I've got, because if I had an extra thousand, sure, I'd go on the cruise that I was looking at or whatever. So that's what I had in mind, and I didn't really think anything more of it. I kind of let that go. And then one day I was just looking at my bank account because I was just writing an entry in my checkbook, and it was very surprising and startling because the amount in my checkbook was $1,000 higher than it had been. And I didn't see any entry. I mean, it wasn't like money had come in that I'd put in the account. So then I did some just forensic accounting. I went back to look at previous bank statements and went online to check the bank account. Like, okay, I don't see anything showing up. I thought there'd been a bank error, but as far back as I went, there it was. I just kept looking back. I went back more than a year and it was still there. And I thought, no way, that was not there. And it was so interesting and amazing. So then I went ahead and scheduled the vacation, of course. Um, but that was just one of many times. I think in the book I mentioned another, the mystical way. That's pretty mystical, having the money just show up in the bank account. I like it. It's clean. I've had that kind of thing happen several times. It doesn't really matter about the amount. If you need the amount, then the amount that's need. Remember, what you need, you can get. So when it's that passion, it's like it's that zest. So don't get hung up on the word need. Just feel like, yeah, this is important. It's
That
necessary.
emotion, the high level
Mhm.
emotion associated with it.
Yeah, it's just knowing I need this. Like I need to be teleported to safety. Boom, you're teleported to safety. I need thousands of dollars in my bank account. You've got it. So it's just knowing like I need that. That's basic, that's unacceptable not to have whatever that is. So just knowing like that's bottom level, I need it. So the other thing that I talk about in the book was just a fun experience with my young daughters when we'd gone to a restaurant. I'd paid with a credit card for the lunch or dinner or whatever it was, but for the tip, I was explaining I would like to leave a cash tip. Let's check and see if I've got enough dollar bills. So I'm explaining the percentage and how that works. But then I opened my wallet and I think, I can't remember if it was only one $1 bill or nothing. It was sad. So I thought, well, this is unfortunate. This is not enough for the tip. So I shut the wallet. But my daughters were in a playful mood and I was in a playful mood. So I said, well, let's just check again, shall we? And like, yeah, because my daughters had seen lots of reality shifts. They'd seen when they'd lost something We would just hope for reality shift, and boom, their missing shoes would show up on their bed, on their pillow, which nobody would put them there, or whatever it was. This was happening all the time. So I thought, okay, let's just hope for a reality shift. So I opened the wallet again. And long story short, I'm just pulling dollar bill out of what was an empty wallet with my daughters cheering, yay! Like, do we have enough for the tip? Not yet. Okay, let's look again. So that was fun.
Oh my gosh, I am a 10 excited that you just shared this for two reasons. Number one, I wanted to come back to the Mandela effect. And number two, I have a really good friend who called me like maybe a month ago, and he had this experience where he was in a hotel room and he lost an item and he couldn't find it anywhere. They looked every single place you could possibly look, left, and they came back and it was on the bed. Nobody had been in the room. And he was trying to ask me, like, what happened? What happened? And we were talking about, like, maybe your spirit team came back and put it back for you, because he was asking, is there an entity that maybe moved it? And I was like, I don't feel like energetically that's what it was. But I think it's more of a dimensional shift, like the Mandela effect. So let's talk about this in a little bit more detail, because we've brushed about it a couple of times. So the Mandela effect, you explained, is Nelson Mandela, a large part of the conscious collective, remembers that he died in prison when, if you look at the reality of right now, as this video is being taped, he did not. He got out of prison. He served as president, and was alive for a long time past when people remembered he died. But it's not like it's just one thing. There are so many examples. So I guess I would like to just talk about a couple things that I know I remember for sure that the Mandela effect does, would support that. So for me, a couple of the big ones are, I remember so vividly, mirror, mirror on the wall was the saying. And that is not, if you go back, what they said. Field of Dreams, I remember, if you build it, they will come. It wasn't one person, it was, you were trying to get a whole bunch of people to come. You wanted the father, but you wanted a whole bunch of people. The other one is the Monopoly guy definitely had a monocle. I can picture it. And I know that Ed McMahon was bringing those checks,
Yes.
because back then I watched so many doggone TV shows, and every other commercial was him all jolly, people shocked that he was there. And if you look on Publisher Clearinghouse website, of course, he never worked for them. They do say he worked for another sweepstakes, but it wasn't that kind of commercial. There's no way. I know what I remember, and I've had this conversation with lots of people. So will you share a couple things that you remember that are different than that? And then let's talk about this
Mm.
dimensional shifting that we think might be going on.
I remember a kidney punch used to be dangerous in martial arts, which I've practiced. Because
Like
yeah,
back of
yeah,
your back, right? Like right here.
that's where they used to be. They've moved
Yes.
up. They've moved up under the relative safety of the rib cage. So if you strike or punch someone there, they're not going to be urinating blood necessarily. So it's a lot less risky. So that's to our benefit, really. And then lots of extinct species are coming back, like the coelacanth fish. They're giant, huge, dinosaur era looking fish. They've been gone for a long time, hundreds, if not thousands of years. But now they're ubiquitous. There are just lots of them in the ocean. The coelacanth, I know, and that's not the only Lazarus animal that's come back. Lots of them have come back, and some are huge, like the giant Galapagos tortoise. They're huge, and those were considered extinct, and they're back. So the heart has moved from the left side of the chest to the center, and I remember
Okay, I
putting.
heard you talking about that. I remember as a
Uh-huh.
little girl, always like you would go here and they would tell you to move. You're not over your heart. It's on the
Wow.
left side.
Right, because they're teachers and they want to have a teaching moment. And I remember going to get blood pressure taken. They'd say, we can get a good reading next to your heart on the left arm, right? Yeah, so these things have changed and now it's in the center and the kidneys have gone up and geography is changing. I remember South America used to be pretty much under North American continent and now it's slid way off to the east. It's gone way over to the right. So very strange. Lots of things like that. Products are changing. Kit Kat bar used to have a hyphen. Um,
Jiffy, Jiffy. I swear to God, I remember Jiffy peanut butter.
yes. So what we're saying is these are not misremembering. It's more like mismatched memories, sure, but let's not put down what we individually remember. And sometimes we don't necessarily agree about all of the Mandela effects either. Like I might remember some, you remember some. They may or may not exactly match. And because some people feel like, okay, which planet are you from? Which reality are you from? But the bigger point
Maybe that is
is
the better question to ask. Which reality are we from? Because doesn't our consciousness follow the highest, greatest path of whatever our learning is meant to be?
we are consciousness. This is a waking dream. Some people call it a simulation, but the mystics from thousands of years ago would call it a dream. And I think that might be more accurate, but whatever, simulation, dream, pretty similar idea. And that seems like what's really going on. So when you start recognizing that everything that looks physical and real is quite malleable, it can move, it can change, and it doesn't necessarily need to stay the same. So where we're from would be like me remembering I'm from between these lives. We all are. We're from basically like that kingdom of heaven. That's where we're from. We are consciousness, we are love. And that's the big thing. And so I think we need to know it for this time of ascension and awakening for humanity with all these problems that seem like they're too big to solve, but they're not. And that's what the Mandela effect seems to me to be showing us, that these changes can happen. Extinct animals gone thousands of years, they're coming back. And it could be anything. Just because it looks a certain way and we've heard a certain story doesn't mean that's the way it needs to stay. So that's why I like to ask, another reason to ask, how good can it get for all of us? It's really such a good question to ask because then it invites, this participation with the cosmos. And we may find ourselves surprised quite a bit, finding that things we thought were serious, unsolvable problems are now completely taken care of. And things that we thought we had to worry about, we don't need to be afraid about at all. And that is aligning with the great spiritual truths.
Well, and this makes a lot of sense because you were talking earlier and you were sharing a couple of examples of money and how all of a sudden you wanted to go on that vacation and you didn't have the money, you knew it wasn't there, and you thought to yourself, if I had an extra $1,000, I would go. And there it was. And the same thing with the waitress with the tip money. But it seems to make a lot of sense to me that if everything is malleable, and maybe we just put these perceptions out that money is hard to earn and it's going to take time and investment has to come in. But if things are on a quantum level, just energy, and we can change by the observer how the energy flows and what it becomes, then why not be able to instantly close a wallet, open a wallet, and have money in there? It doesn't seem to me to be that big of a stretch out of the realm of possibility, especially when you look at everything on this earth is mostly empty space anyway,
Right.
right?
Yeah. So the limitation is basically self-imposed. These
Yeah.
are, yeah. And maybe it's in the gut, maybe it's in the heart. It could be at any one of the levels within us where we've got these limitations, but they're arbitrary and they're beliefs that can be played with. And this is that key idea from high energy money. I also touch on it in my book, Reality Shifts, this idea
Okay.
about flipping some kind of a belief that's having sort of a destructive dampening effect on one's hope to see how good can it get. If you start feeling like, oh, I've got these depressing thoughts that keep crashing in and I can't hold that high vibratory frequency of gratitude and bliss and joy, and I can't stay up there because I keep getting crashing down, then you want to look for those things that are causing destructive interference and find the beliefs that I wouldn't say they're yours, but they're the ones you're noticing. To me, it's like finding an antiviral for something that's, causing some sort of a problem with your manifesting abilities.
No, that makes a lot of sense. So another thing that you do in addition to these books that you've written is you have a YouTube channel. And I want to share a story with you that when we reached out, I have an assistant who reaches out to my guests sometimes, and I saw your name and I thought it looked really familiar. when I went to go look at you, I found that I had watched a bunch of your videos. And the one that is the most popular on your channel is learning how to see your own aura. So, will you explain a little bit about that? Because you've had like 1.3 million people who were interested enough to watch that technique.
Yes, I wrote a book called Aura Advantage. It was the first book I had published. So
Oh, I didn't
basically,
know that.
yeah, it's about learning how to see your energy field. And so there are lots of ways to see your own energy field, but one that works pretty well for most people is to just look, sort of softly focus between two fingers. It's best if you've got like a regular plain background, like a wall that's not too interesting. And then what you want to do is just with that soft focus, and it's maybe first focus on a finger and then shift your gaze so it's right between the two fingers. And what you're looking for is this gentle glow that starts emanating from all around your body, or all around the fingers. And you can actually see colors in it as well. It might show just mostly white, but you might notice it's yellow or green or blue. And so if you've got a white background, that's going to make it a little easier if you've got a white wall. And then holding it far enough away so that you can do that soft focus thing works really well. So what's happening is you're seeing this energy field that each of us intrinsically are. We are energy. Scientists are now showing, and my book Aura Advantage describes some of the science behind it, that we radiate light, right out of our body. And people who are in a good mood are radiating more light. People who are in not a good mood, kind of really down low and the depressed or maybe angry, they're actually sucking light out of a room. So I've got some of these kinds of studies and stories in my book Aura Advantage, as well as things you can do to see your energy field, what the colors might mean, how to work with color therapy to change your life. So it's a
Wow.
really cool book.
So are you walking around just noticing people's auras when you're out and about?
Fortunately, no, it would be entirely too distracting. Sometimes it happens and I'll see things that are distracting, but then that would usually be something for me to pay attention to it. So, but it can be the more stuff you've got going on, if the more distracting it is. So, obviously, if you're driving a car, then it's suboptimal to be seeing lots of energetic effects.
Yeah, you're right. That would be very distracting. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Well, this has been such a fascinating conversation, and I'm sure that the people that are watching are curious to find out a little bit more about where they can connect with you, your YouTube channel, and the many books that you've written. So, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you?
Well, my primary website is realityshifters, plural.com. And that's where I've got my monthly newsletter. I publish it on Substack right now. So if people are on Substack, they can check me out there. I think Cynthia Sue Larson. Then I've got the YouTube channel under my name, Cynthia Sue Larson. And I've got a Twitter account, Facebook, and so forth. But most of my books are right there on the website, Reality Shifters. I publish that monthly newsletter that shares firsthand reports from people around the world noticing these reality shifts and Mandela effects.
Oh, no,
And
that's really cool. I did not know that you had that. That's neat.
yeah, yeah. And so that it's free and it gives people a monthly reminder that anything's possible. And I think that's a good thing. It's very upbeat, it's very positive, which is also a good thing these days. And it'll show what's going on with the organization that I'm also part of, International Mandela Effect Conference, or imec.world is the website. And then we have monthly live streams. And then we have an annual live in-person event. We'll be in Nashville this November 2024, and the November 7th through 10th. And so that's coming up toward the end of the year. I'll be doing an event with Paula Harris, part of Starworks USA, and that'll be a oneness weekend retreat, May 20, I think 25th through the 27th of
Okay, that's coming
May
up.
2024. Yeah.
Okay. Well, how many people do you have that actually attend a conference like the Mandela National Conference?
Well, we started in 2019, so it was right before the world changed, of course. And so that first conference had 50 people. And then we went online for 2020, and um, I don't remember the numbers for that. Most recently, we had an event in Connecticut that was in 2023. And I think we I can't remember the exact number of people we had, but we're hoping to bring it up to 200 or 300 for this year. So we're growing steadily. There was a little bit of a blip, like I said, due to the situation, but I think we're back on track. So we're excited to keep growing, keep bringing community together, because it's so magical when you're able to talk about a topic that maybe people feel like they can't really discuss it with their family, not wide out in the open, like this other weird thing happened, without being gaslit or told, like, in either with words or actions, like, don't talk about that. So it's just so nice to get together and be able to talk about it, share it. And then we'll have speakers describing, some exciting things. The theme this year will be Adventures in Consciousness. So it'll be fun.
Oh,
Yeah.
that sounds really interesting. Well, Cynthia, I am so grateful. I'm grateful to be able to have a conversation like this with you. I'm super grateful that you have all the science that you bring into the spirituality, because it helps open up people maybe that are skeptical, or they want to feel like there's more seriousness behind some of these experiences, and we're just learning more and more. And so you're putting so much out into the world. I mean, YouTube, first of all, people just do not understand the amount of work it takes to put these together. And I saw how many videos you have and how long you've been doing it. Plus, you have a free newsletter, and then you're organizing all these conferences. So I just want to thank you so, so much for what you are doing to help raise the vibration of the collective consciousness. It's just so important right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Laurie. Thanks for everything you're doing too. I really
Oh,
appreciate it so much.
thank you. And thank you so much, everybody, for watching.
Yeah.
And we're clear. Oh my gosh, I should have said it at the end. My camera went out 8 times.
Wow, but then it stabilized finally, like, thank goodness.
I know it was your energy, because that has never happened in 53 interviews, and I know how powerful you are.
Yeah. No, it's true. I've had similar situations.